Unmute and everything, so don't worry about it. This is casual, this is summer. If you need to unmute and say some things, something's not working or you have something to say, just go ahead and say it. Hi, Sal.
Hello there, Lee.
So good morning. We'll do the official good morning. I'm Li Kynvi. I'm the Intern Minister of First Parish Church of Groton, Massachusetts. I use they, them pronouns.
I am Sal Lombardi. I use he, him pronouns. I've been a member of First Parish Church for approximately 17 years, I believe. And I am the lay leader this morning. We are glad you are here. We are a community seeking to deepen spiritually, to take care of one another, and to be a blessing to the world. Unitarian Universalism is a faith for all. So whoever you are, whatever country you come from, whoever you love, whatever you've done, whatever your abilities, challenges, or gifts, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. In this virtual, at the moment, but very real.
All right. So Sal and I are fully vaccinated. We are grateful to be able to safely lead worship together this morning. Reverend Elea is off this month and will be back leading worship on August 8th. Today is the first of our 5-Sunday summer cinema series, which we're going to show a different film each week that'll provide sort of the theme for our service. These summer services are more casual than our regular church year and will be not archived on our public YouTube page, but they'll be available to members through a link in your NNO. You want to take this next part?
Okay. Whether you live with us on Zoom or on YouTube, if interacting via the chat or is engaging and fun for you, we encourage that. And especially encourage you to support and greet each other as we continue to nurture this beautiful community. If you are new here and would like more information about First Parish and programs, events, and small groups, email welcome@uugroton.org. and we will get you connected. We are reflecting on themes from the movie 700 Sundays. Today, 700 Sundays is comedian and actor Billy Crystal's autobiographical solo show. It looks back at his childhood on Long Island, telling stories of his youth, adolescence, and young adulthood. His family, and especially his hard-working father, who helped run a record store in Times Squares and produce concerts by jazz greats. It's a funny, poignant, exploring, loving, and loss. Today, of course, is the 4th of July. So some of these themes will also work their way into our service, including our story for all ages. We have learned through the pandemic that our sanctuary is not confined to a building. We co-create it together in so many ways. While we plan to return to our sacred old meeting house on September 12th, we will also continue with an online worship presence. So whether you are here on Sunday morning or another time, come on in, rest for a while, receive hope and strength. You're welcome here.
Definitely. Thank you. Beloveds, when we pause, when we allow a gap and we breathe deeply, it can be so refreshing, like the rain that breaks the heat, right? It's an abrupt shift of perspective. We slow and we pay attention, and there's the world. So this is our weekly reminder that this kind of pause is always available. As has become our tradition, I'm going to ring our meditation bell and allow us time to slow and pay attention, to consider breathing, to consider the sound, and to become quieter in ourselves, to make space for this moment. This first bell is for you. And the second is for the ones you love. And the third is for this whole wide world. Frederick Douglass was born into slavery around 1818 in Maryland. His mother was Native American and his father was of African descent. He taught himself how to read and write as a slave. He eventually escaped to New York. He got married. Then he moved to New Bedford, Massachusetts. He and his spouse had 5 children, and he became a leader in the abolitionist movement. Frederick Douglass was deeply involved also in the movement for women's rights. He was the only African-American person to attend the Seneca Falls Convention, which is a very important gathering of women's rights activists in New York. That happened in 1848. And one of the things that he said there was, in this denial of the right to participate in government, not merely the degradation of woman and the perpetuation of a great injustice happens, but the maiming and repudiation of 1/2 of the moral and intellectual power of the government of the world. 1848. Frederick Douglass was one of the most morally and politically influential public figures of the 19th century. Just a couple of weeks ago, we acknowledged Juneteenth as a federal holiday for the first time. And that's really a chance to celebrate and commemorate the moment that freedom came for enslaved Black people in this nation. This nation can definitely say we are capable of change, and we have to also say that we continue to struggle with the legacies of slavery. In 1852, Frederick Douglass gave a speech called "What to the Slave is the 4th of July?" Last summer, 2020, in the wake of George Floyd's murder, National Public Radio asked 5 cousins, 5 of the young descendants of Frederick Douglass, to read parts of his famous speech. And I am going to share that with you now. There we go.
Do I look there or look there? Okay. Okay. My name is Alexa Ann Watson, and I am the great-great-great-granddaughter of Frederick
Douglass is my great-great-great-great.
I am the great-great-great-granddaughter of Frederick Douglass.
I am the great-great-great-great-grandchild.
I've been counting on my fingers since I was like 5.
Whenever you're ready, here we go.
This is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom.
Fellow citizens, I shall not presume to dwell at length on the associations that cluster about this day. The simple story of it is that 76 years ago, the people of this country were British subjects.
Oppression makes a wise man mad. Your fathers were wise men, and if they did not go mad, they became restive under this treatment.
With brave men, there's always a remedy for oppression.
They succeeded, and today you reap the fruits of their success. The freedom gained is yours, and you, therefore, may properly celebrate this anniversary.
Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence?
Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us?
I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary.
Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common.
The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me.
The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me.
This 4th of July is yours, not mine.
You may rejoice, I must mourn.
Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions.
At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed.
Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke.
For it is not light that is needed, but fire.
It is not the gentle shower, but thunder.
We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake.
The feeling of the nation must be quickened.
The conscience of the nation must be roused.
The propriety of the nation must be startled.
The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed.
And its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim.
To him, your celebration is a sham.
Your boasted liberty an unholy license.
Your national greatness, swelling vanity.
Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless.
Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence.
Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery.
Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings,
With all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him
Mere bombast.
Fraud.
deception,
Impiety.
and hypocrisy. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. Allow me to say in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day presented of the state of the nation, I do not despair of this country.
This speech was written almost 170 years ago, but this part of it is still extremely relevant, especially with today's protests.
I think that when people are oppressed, they feel silenced, and if someone feels silenced, they get angry. There are certain tactics that you need to use to get people to really hear your voice, and it's not always going to be just like a very calm discussion.
I think he's mostly talking to the people who are already on his side, but believe that they can still try to talk this out, or that things are still justifiable. I know a lot of people at the time were saying, and people now are still saying, that it's not as bad as it could be.
While the 4th of July probably does not feel the same to me as it does to others, I wouldn't say that it has no meaning, because it is the time when America as a country became free from another country. But I would say that it's not the time in which I gained my freedom.
He had a lot of hope, especially for his age. And I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm only 20 years old, but I'm exhausted. I have these thoughts like, will we ever really get to this point? Or is this really something that we should actually spend our time fighting for?
Somebody once said that pessimism is a tool of white oppression, and I think that's true. I think in many ways we are still slaves to the notion that it will never get better. But I think that there is hope, and I think it's important that we celebrate Black joy and Black life, and we remember that change is possible, change is probable, and that there's hope.
Yeah, powerful. I saw that and I thought, wow, we need to see that together on the 4th of July. so that we have those voices and those faces in our heads when we resist pessimism, when we resist cynicism. So let's light our chalice today for our nation's independence and its paradox. Let's light it to remember the contribution of our folks from African descent and from Asian and South African descent, Central American descent, for our folks of European descent. Let's light it holding awareness of the violent dispossession and oppression of this land's original inhabitants, the Native Americans who for 40,000 years lived in and died in and owned this rich and vast land. We light our chalice for meaning and manifestation of a more inclusive freedom, even as the fight for justice continues. And we'll light it with a deep love for our country, even as we want to help it grow into its potential. Thanks, Sal. The spirit of life is how we always respond to our chalice lighting at the First Parish Church of Groton, so we'll do that again today. Melissa, do you want to do your magic thing of pasting the lyrics into the Zoom chat or the YouTube Zoom? You guys are Zoom chat. My guitar is changing tune as we speak. All right. Here we go. First in Spanish, translated by Lilia Cuervo and Ervin Barrios, and then we'll do it in English. And again, everything this month is the alto version. So for all you altos, enjoy. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí, y al corazón, cántale tu compasión, sopla volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Ariágame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. So now I'm going to talk to our kiddos for a bit, and to all of us, of course. Let's say words for our gathering, if we have any kiddos out there. We are going to say we are Unitarian, Universalists.
Universalists.
There you go. With
Minds that think,
hearts
hearts
that
that
love,
love,
and
and
hands
ready to help.
Beautiful. Our story today is parts of this book right here. I wanted you to see the words so that you could sing along, because this is all about the history of people writing different verses to My Country 'Tis of Thee. So I ended up deciding to do the kids' story here, the story for all generations, I think we call it, as a video, so that you could see the words and the pictures more clearly. So enjoy this. This is actually just excerpts from the book, even though it turns out it's quite a few excerpts. All right. There we go. Our story for all ages today is excerpted from this book, My Country 'Tis of Thee, How One Song Reveals the History of Civil Rights. It's written by Claire Rudolf Murphy and illustrated by Bryan Collier. More than any other, one song traces America's history of patriotism and protest. Since 1831, Americans have sung My Country 'Tis of Thee to honor the freedoms promised in the Declaration of Independence. Protesters for equal rights have claimed their place in this nation's history by writing and singing new verses. The song first appeared in England in the 1740s as God Save the King. Supporters of King George II sang it during a 1745 power struggle for the British throne. God save our gracious King, long live our noble King, God save the King. Send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us, God save the King. But colonists had no voice in Parliament. Colonists were the folks living in what we now know as America, the American colonies, and Parliament was the British government. In 1765, King George III began taxing the colonists without their consent. So they boycotted. Frustrated, they refused to buy goods from England. They drank coffee or Dutch tea instead of English tea. Women wove their own fabric instead of using English linen. And men held secret meetings and dumped English tea into the harbor. That's known as the Boston Tea Party. Loyal colonists continued to sing the British verses, but angry citizens called for a revolution. Sing it with me. I've got all these words on the screen, so y'all can sing with me. Fame, let thy trumpet sound, rouse all the world around with loud alarms. Fly hence to Britain's land, tell George in vain his hand is raised 'gainst freedom's band when called to arms. July 4th, 1776, Americans declared themselves independent of England. Early in the war, British soldiers and loyalists sang God Save the King after every victory. Revolutionary soldiers, what we would now call American soldiers, shouted their own new verses as they marched into battle. They dreamed of freedom and having a voice in their new country's government. God save the 13 states, long rule the United States. God save our states. Make us victorious, happy and glorious. No tyrants over us. God save our states. 7 years later, the colonists finally won their independence. new country was formed, the United States of America. Its leaders wrote a constitution that promised justice and liberty for all. White male landowners elected the first president. Songwriters wrote dozens of new verses to celebrate the new country and the new president. In 1789, Americans serenaded President George Washington in New York City on his inauguration day. Hail thou auspicious day, far let America thy praise resound. Joy to our native land, let every heart expand, for Washington's at hand, with glory crowned. But not every American was free. For years, women like Abigail Adams had encouraged leaders to remember the ladies when they wrote our country's new laws. But the men did not listen. In most states, women were not free to vote, to own property, or to make important decisions about their children's lives. In 1795, an anonymous woman published this protest verse in a Philadelphia newspaper. God save each female's right, show her to her ravished sight, woman is free. Let freedom's voice prevail, and draw aside the veil, supreme effulgence hail, sweet liberty. I had to look up effulgence. It means extreme brightness. There you go. Many still did not believe that women deserved the same freedoms as men. Americans celebrated their new country every year on the 4th of July, but they had no national anthem to sing. In 1831, a seminary student at Andover Newton Theological School here in Massachusetts, named Samuel Francis Smith, wrote patriotic verses to a melody he found in an old German hymnal. He had no idea that his new song shared the same tune as God Save the King. At the Independence Day service, the children's choir at Park Street Church in Boston debuted the song Smith called America. My native country thee, land of the noble free, thy name I love. I love thy rocks and rills, thy woods and templed hills, my heart with rapture thrills like that above. But black children could only listen from the back of the church. America was not a land of the noble free for the 4 million slaves in the South. Calling for an end to slavery, abolitionists wrote hundreds of protest verses to well-known tunes. They were sung at rallies and meetings across the land. My country, 'tis for thee, dark land of slavery, for thee I weep. Land where the slave has sighed, and where he toiled and died, to serve a tyrant's pride, for thee I weep. Slavery did not end yet. In 1861, the Civil War broke out between the North and the South over slavery and states' rights. Northern soldiers sang America as they marched into battle. Let music swell the breeze and ring from all the trees sweet freedom's song. Let mortal tongues awake, let all that breathe partake, let rocks their silence break, the sound prolong. When President Abraham Lincoln's 1863 Emancipation Proclamation ended slavery in the Confederate States, he and Mrs. Lincoln sang America with soldiers and free slaves at the Union battle camps. And when the war finally ended in 1865, free Black people sang new verses at joyous celebrations. Come sing a cheerful lay and celebrate this day throughout the land. Oh, let us joyful be, for freedom's sons are we. In this land now the free at thy command. In 1870, freedom's sons of color gained a voice through voting too. Black men of color were allowed to vote, but not freedom's daughters, black or white. Women sang new verses, demanding their right to the ballot box. They kept on singing and marching until all women had the right to vote in 1920. Our country now from thee, claim we our liberty in freedom's name. Guarding home's altar fires, daughters of patriot sires, their zeal our own inspires, justice to claim. But Native Americans, men or women, still had no right to vote. Even though American Indians had lived on this land for thousands of years, they were not considered citizens of the United States. In 1919, a Sioux writer protested by publishing her poem, A Red Man's America. My country, 'tis to thee, sweet land of liberty, my pleas I bring. Land where our fathers died, whose offspring are denied the franchise given wide, hark while I sing. America was not yet free for everyone. People of color were not treated as full citizens. They couldn't attend the same schools, eat in the same restaurants, or shop in the same stores as white Americans. In 1939, opera star Marian Anderson wasn't allowed to sing inside Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C., so she sang on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in front of 75,000 people. In protest and in patriotism, she performed America's favorite song, but she changed 2 words. She sang for all her country's people in hopes that her nation would become a place of liberty for all. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, for thee we sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, for every mountainside let freedom ring. Americans across the country listened to Marian Anderson on the radio, including a 10-year-old Martin Luther King Jr. In 1944, 15-year-old Martin Luther King Jr. won a contest with his speech, The Negro and the Constitution. It featured the story of Anderson's inspiring concert. Black America still wears chains. Miss Anderson may not as yet spend the night in any good hotel in America. 19 years later, during the March on Washington, King himself stood in front of the Lincoln Memorial. I have a dream, his voice rang out. This will be the day when all God's children will be able to sing with new meaning, my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. 45 years later, the first person of color was elected to the highest office in the land. At President Barack Obama's inauguration, legendary singer Aretha Franklin performed. The crowd, stretching from the Capitol to the Lincoln Memorial, cheered as she sang about America's journey toward liberty for all. Our fathers, God, to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, let freedom ring. Now it's your turn. Write a new verse for a country that you can believe in. Help freedom ring. I hope somebody else found that interesting. I found it totally fascinating. The book even goes on and on and on from there. But I love the history of songs, and I love using songs as such an effective form of protest, and using the same one through the years, and then having somebody else find that I thought it was great. But I am going to invite us into a spirit of prayer here, and I'm going to start with a little bit from Richard Blanco. Richard Blanco is a gay man of Cuban descent. He was Barack Obama's 2013 presidential inaugural poet. At the time, he was the youngest, I believe, but Amanda Gorman has surpassed him in that. On this day, which we are celebrating the Declaration of Independence, this stanza from Richard Blanco's poem is from the Declaration of Interdependence. We're the cure for hatred caused by despair. We are the good morning of a bus driver who remembers our name, the tattooed man who gives up his seat on the subway. We're every door held open with a smile when we look into each other's eyes, the way we behold the moon. We are the moon. We're the promise of one people, one breath, declaring to one another, I see you, I need you, I am you. We are here, beloveds, to bring all the loving presence, all the spacious grace we can to each other. So join me as we send our prayers of compassion to Grace Coolidge and her whole family at the death of Grace's adult daughter, Catherine, and to Joan Wheeler on the death of her dear friend, Andrew Kenna. We send prayers of healing today to Christopher Garner, Wendy Frank, Irv Rockwood's brother Tom, Bob Saucy, Carol Swift's sister Lois. We have a big joy to share and to celebrate, which is that Lorraine's family, Sarah, Adam, Henry, and Max, have found a new home in Groton at last. I'm happy to say that my surgery went beautifully. I am recovering very well, as evidenced. And I'm so grateful for the support of the Caring Committee this week. If you're here with us on Sunday morning, you're invited now to share all of what's on your heart, your joys, your sorrows, your concerns, your mixed blessings, your celebrations. If you're here on Zoom, you can actually unmute if you would like to and say a thing, or you can write it in the chat. And if you're on YouTube live, then on Sunday morning, then you can write it in the chat and share with each other. And if you're on YouTube Live at another time, I'm going to encourage you to take a moment and name for yourself what you're holding, and name for yourself your loved ones who you would love to send your energy and your prayers and your best wishes to. See if there's anybody who wants to share who's here on the Zoom machine. Blessed Spirit of life, mystery of mysteries. When we want to belong, may we remember to accept. When we want to be close, may we remember to reach out. When we want to feel welcome, may we open our arms. When we want mercy, may we forgive. When we want justice, may we sow seeds of peace. In the words of theologian Krista Tippett, may we meet this moment in the life of the world with our highest humanity. May we face what is hard and hurting and rise to what is beautiful and life-giving. And may we do that as a matter of the everyday, growing alongside each other, saying again and again to each other, I see you, I need you, I am you. Amen. Sal, you're on, man.
Okay, good morning. Just like to start off with why I chose this film. I had other films in mind, but I thought this one-man act by Billy Crystal is really compelling. It's about life, his life, and I think not unsimilar to many of our own lives. That we have burdens, we have events that affect us, and we wonder if we're doing right by our life. And that's pretty much why I chose it. And also, for sure, the humor. I thought it would be, if for the first film of this series for July, that would be great to have everybody kind of laughing, especially since we've been through so much during the pandemic. So humor was a deciding factor as well.
Mm-hmm. It was funny. Who here in the Zoom saw it? Did you see the film? Yeah, I think several of you saw it. It was hilarious. Betty's talking there. I can't hear you, Betty, but I hear you saying it was hilarious. Yeah. No, I think that's great. What do we want to do with our lives? Are we doing right by our life? I like how you said that, Sal. Yeah. So did you have an answer to that question when you saw the film? Are you doing right by your life?
I think at this point I've done as best I can. A lot of it just depends on your character and stuff. I come from a blue-collar family, and my parents' ambition for me was to get some education and then go to work. And I didn't see it that way. So I decided I had to do things on my own. And that's where I started. And I think my wife, I have a partner for 54 years. And you might find this a little humorous, but my son discovered that he was 54 at the same time as our anniversary. It took him a few years to figure that out. But, I have a son and daughter that I'm immensely proud of, and they love us. We love them. I think we did a good job in bringing them up. I've used my career in food to help, like here at the church when I can, and do things for people whenever I can. So at this point, I feel my life is good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we were talking on, I forget what day it was, but when you and I met to talk about the service, you told me a story story that I thought was really wonderful. Would you mind telling that about visiting the baker?
Oh, yeah. I decided out of high school, I graduated young 17 out of high school. And I would say I was immature. And I didn't think I would be able to get through college in a serious way, that I would probably flunk out or something. So I needed a little bit of time. I was already cooking at a local hospital where I lived, 3 meals a day, and things like that. So I figured, well, let me see if I want to go into this. So I went to the Culinary Institute of America, and it became obvious in much less than a year that it's a tough life. There's a lot of drinking going on and stuff. And one day somebody took me up to this bakery in Connecticut, and I talked to the baker, and he said to me there was only 2 things in his life: sex and booze. I'm not sure which order. But he was trying to be funny. But in my heart, I knew he was being quite serious and truthful. And that's when I decided I needed something. I had to go to college. That was my awakening.
Yeah. Yeah, it was sort of that moment like, even if I become a baker, that's not going to be my answer, right? Like, I need to make other choices. And it's interesting, like, how, both how what you were just talking about with the theme of how humor reveals truth, I think was part of Billie Holiday. Yes, Billie Holiday also. Although she's not known for her humor, I suppose. But Billy Crystal's reflection on his life in the film, that there was so much humor and, so much truth kind of revealed through the humor. But also sometimes humor about the most painful truths, right? Because if he were going to say in a serious way to you, the only things that actually matter to me are sex and booze, if he really felt that, he'd probably have to cry. You know what I mean? Like, and that was not what he was going to do. And so there is a way that that humor makes it palatable. I also think that it sometimes makes hard truths just a lot easier to swallow. Yeah. And I suppose my swallowing and palatable metaphors are good for sitting with a chef this morning. What do you think Billy Crystal is saying about what it means to be human in this film?
I think to be human, you have to, I think he feels, you have to kind of grow into it. It takes time. You can't, at a young age as he was, 15, all of a sudden have an idea of your life. In fact, in the film, he actually is asking God, why is my life so terrible? Why are you doing this to me? And that's when God tells him, play with the hand that you're dealt. So I think it took him a while. As the film reveals, he finally, towards the end, starts looking at, he lost his father. He's only 5'8". Could be a couple more inches. He had his mother throughout his life. He has a wonderful wife. He's done well as a comedian and actor. So when you can take an overall view of your life, that's when you can appreciate it as having had a good life, and those were the cards you were dealt.
Yeah. 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 He wove so many themes through this, the jazz and the influences that we have through our lives. And there's something, I think somebody was saying this on Friday after the film, that there's a way that his humor is laced with compassion rather than with sort of derision or criticism or mockery, like you sometimes hear in some folks' humor. And, some of it for sure is, depending on your point of view, can be perceived as, hurtful in small ways. But in general, I think he has a very compassionate stance toward himself as well. I mean, he likes to make fun of himself, but not ever in a way that you feel like he's really self-denigrating. And there's a skill to that. It's very interesting. Even when, like that story about him doing the jump shot with the guy who has, what do you say, a building in a pair of socks, like really tall, and sort of realizing that like everybody here is laughing, and there's that moment, like he's what 15 years old, and are they laughing with me? Are they laughing at me? And it's in that moment he's able to hear his mom say, I think, the other big lesson that goes along with, play the hand you're dealt, and these are the cards you got, basically, which is like, give it your best shot, which is how you answered my question about your life, right? I gave it my best shot. I'm giving it my best shot. And there he is about to do this jump ball with this building of a guy, and he hears his mom, give it your best shot, and it makes sense to him. He doesn't hear it like I would have honestly heard my mom at 15, like, oh my God, what is she even talking about? But he actually takes it in, It was beautiful. There were so many things in there. Are there specific scenes that really stand out for you, Sal?
I think the basketball game does. I think his interactions with the jazz musicians, and Billie Holiday. I think the scene in the movie House where he is imitating the little kid yelling out, "Shane, come back!" And Billie Holiday just looks down. He ain't coming back.
Yeah. Yeah. So for those of you who haven't seen it, this is a great scene. So it turns out, I guess he was with his dad. His dad had to do something. It turned out Billie Holiday took him to a movie once, right? Because she was really very close with his father, but even more so with his uncle Milt, who's Milt Gabler, who's very famous jazz record producer, who was Billy Crystal's mother's brother. So Billy Crystal is went to a movie with Billie Holiday. Sitting on her lap is this 1953 Western called Shane. And this big dramatic scene at the end, this little boy in the movie who Billy Crystal is, I think, clearly identifying with, right? It has this big hero in the film whose name is Shane, who's kind of this like, whatever kind of guy. And he just rides off, and the little kid's like, "Shane, come back!" And there's Billie Holiday, like, "Nah, he ain't never coming back, kid." like dose of reality right here from Billie Holiday. I think I told you this. I ended up doing a little bit of research because I was so fascinated with the Billie Holiday story there. Her regular record label, Columbia Records, which I've known for a long time, she's one of my heroes, refused to record her song "Strange Fruit," which turned out to be her most important and influential song. But it was 1939, and that's a song about lynching in the South. It is an incredible song. And it was Billy Crystal's uncle Milt who said, "I will produce that song." And his Commodore record label produced "Strange Fruit" when nobody else would. It later, I think, got declared the most important song of the century. And when Billie Holiday died in 1959. Milt Gabler didn't die till 2001. He was 90 years old. She'd been gone for 42 years. And Billie Holiday's picture was the only picture at his bedside when he was in his last few months. It was just her, and her music is the only thing he would listen to. Not only her music, but only her music that he recorded with her. So that's how deep and intense that relationship was for Milt Gabler. I found that to be really, really interesting that she and he had that close a relationship. She's a very interesting figure. I'm absolutely fascinated with her. All right, so we're getting to the end of time. Do we want to see if anybody has a quick comment? Sure. Mm-hmm. If there's anybody here on Zoom who saw the film, who has a quick comment to make about what your response to it was. I told Sal a little bit about our discussion afterward, but feel free. Go ahead, Betty.
What I got a kick out of was the little fur stole that his mother wore that had a face on it. My mother had one of those, and I remember sitting in a church and this little animal is looking at me. I was saying, oh. But he had a lot of small things like that I experienced myself because I lived all those years too. He's younger than me, so but it was a wonderful, hilarious at times, sad at times. I cried and I laughed, and it's a good movie if you can rent it on DVD. I imagine from Netflix if you still can do that, and I recommend it.
It's not on Netflix, but it is on Amazon, so you can rent it there.
Oh, it's on Amazon. Good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also, he made it into book form as well. This is in the Groton Public Library. Well, it's not right now because I have it, but I'll take it back. I'll take it back if anybody wants to check it out. And Sal also has a DVD that you'd probably be willing to loan to people.
Sure.
Yeah. So you could always let us know. Yeah. I hadn't heard of it. Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
So I thought Billy Crystal was brilliant. I always appreciated his humor. I don't think that I ever really appreciated what an actor he is. I was really struck by how vulnerable he was willing to be about his whole life, his relationships, and how modest he was about his career. So his ability to pull us in and make us cry and make us laugh, it kind of stopped at the point at which he became famous. He doesn't talk about that. So helps me remember to deal with my own ego. So thank you, Sal. Thank you, Sal.
I appreciate that. Nice insight.
Yeah, it is. It is. I hadn't really thought of that, but of course you'd think that somebody as famous as Billy Crystal would talk about his fame. And he didn't. He didn't even really talk about how famous his uncle and his father were. I mean, he clearly showed his pride in them, but Milt Gabler is a big deal. He wrote lots of lyrics to like pretty well-known songs like L is for the way you look at me. That's Milt Gabler's lyrics. Dankeschön. I mean, he was a thing. He was a force. Yeah. And it looks like Melissa says that it's on HBO this month. All right. So those of you who have HBO, check it out. I had never heard of it. It was such a gift to receive, I've watched it several times now. And I enjoyed it very much. Yeah. And talented as an actor for sure. It makes me want to go watch When Harry Met Sally again. Because I haven't watched that in years. And he was brilliant in that. All right. Welcome to Steve's Kitty. I love it. Kitty in church.
Bright Eyes, I think that is.
Mr. Bright Eyes, exactly. For those of us who are devoted Steve Lehman gratitude readers. All right, so we will begin to bring ourselves to a close here. We'll remind us that Juliana Grant is going to ring the Paul Revere bell here in our old meeting house to celebrate Independence Day today at noon. She just graduated high school and won the first place in that old Groton meeting house essay contest for her poem, which is called The Matriarch of Groton, which is about our church. There's a link to that in the NNO, but if you want to come down, and I don't know where she's going to speak. I assume outside, but
I think so, yeah. And
okay, good.
yes, she's going to read her poem.
Okay,
So
great.
that should be exciting.
Yeah,
We're
it'll be
getting in
fun.
a few minutes.
Yeah. Hopefully the rain holds off, or just bring an umbrella. We don't melt. And I will also say that, of course, the good work of the First Parish Church of Groton depends on all of our continued generosity. So in any donations in any amount are always welcome, of course. And we extend our deepest gratitude for the generosity that connects all of us and the world, and lets us do this, and lets us send our minister off on vacation for a few weeks here, much needed. And even though I only have, my learner's permit, lets me be here trying to operate this Zoom machine here. So through August 1st, we are in our summer cinema service. We had somebody lined up for next week, but we had a cancellation, and so I'm taking it. And we're going to see the film Wings of Desire, which may be a little complicated for some folks. I apologize for that, but I think it's worth it because it's subtitled. So I will show it, and I also will have it available if somebody wants to watch it or rewatch it. I have the DVD. It's a very interesting film, and if anybody is willing to watch it, it's really interesting. It's an old German film from '87. And it's the kind of film where a lot happens and you just let it wash over you, and you get impressions. It's beautiful. So we're going to stay here and have a little just more informal chat after we stop the YouTube stream, after our postlude music, which doesn't exist. I just realized I'm not really going to do postlude music. We're going to skip that. So, but first we're going to do a benediction. Will you put your hand on your heart with me, Sal? All right. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. There we go. I'm going to reach the other one out to each other so that we can see our connection and know that we are connected through strong and sturdy and beautiful threads of love. Go in peace and be a blessing to the world. Thank you.